Good, we're underway. Hello again and welcome back to Brojo Online. This is the 12th session now, and we've got a very special guest for you today, Kevan Chandler. I've met him through learning about a project that he was doing called We Carry Kevan, and had a fascinating chat with him a couple of weeks ago, and I'm really interested for you guys to meet him. So today we're going to be talking to him about his life, about what he's doing with his project, and in particular focusing on the theme of overcoming adversity, overcoming the challenges that you face in your life and that sometimes seem insurmountable. So Kevan, welcome aboard, mate. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Awesome stuff, man. So I don't know how much our viewers, know you yet, and I think it's good if we just kind of start from the beginning, get to know a little bit more about you. So, tell us a bit about what's brought you here today and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Kevan Chandler, and I live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, in the States. And I am in a wheelchair. I'm 30 years old. I've been in a chair since I was 4 or 5. I have spinal muscular atrophy, and I love to travel and have adventures. And so about a year ago, some friends and I decided we were going to trek around Europe this summer for a few weeks, and we were going to do it without my wheelchair. Figured out a backpack system, and they carried me on their backs through France and England and Ireland, and it was an amazing experience, not just to go, but to prepare for the trip and see how the people around us and really the world, people that we didn't even know just got so into what we were doing. They were really inspired by it, and so that was exciting to see. And then going on the trip ourselves was just such an amazing experience. So we recently got back, and just have a lot of stories to tell about that and the challenges from it. And, we're just excited to share those.
That's awesome, man. And I like how you cut straight to the core of it. I like the way you kind of, you talked about your physical condition, and then you just go, and then I love traveling. Like it's just another thing about you, right?
Yeah.
And that's something I really want us to dive into today. So many people see themselves. It's like we talked about the other day. They see themselves as essentially disabled by something. And kind of how fictional that concept is. It's only real if you believe it's real, that kind of idea. I'm really keen to have a look at that from your perspective as well. But before we do that, man, tell us a bit about the trip. Tell us how it went and some of the highlights for you.
Sure. We were there for 3 weeks. We spent a week in each country, and we did everything from dancing through the streets in Paris to hiking through the hills of the English countryside. We had a really amazing couple that we stayed with in England, around the Oxted, Western area. The wife has multiple sclerosis. She was diagnosed about a year ago, and so just our story was something that they're really connected to, and so we got to stay with them, and it was encouraging to see how they, because they're a really active couple in their 50s, and when she was diagnosed, rather than like giving up on life, they've found ways to continue doing what they love to do, and so seeing their positive attitude towards life and seeing that in tandem with what we were doing was really encouraging. And just spending time with them, and then we also ended up in Ireland. We hiked the island of Skellig Michael, which is off the west coast. If you've seen the new Star Wars movie, it's the island at the end, and so that's what it's known for nowadays. But at the top is a monastery from the 6th century, and so it just is a really amazing place to be, kind of a sacred ground, if you will, like a pilgrimage. And so it was cool to do that with the guys, and hike up that and experience that together. Um, I don't know. I mean, there's 100 stories I could pour out all day, but that's the basic gist. Right before this, I was at a cookout or a barbecue with some friends, and I was about to leave when one of my friends showed up, and they said, "Okay, real quick, your whole trip in 3 minutes." And that's basically what I told them. I was like, "Well, I went to Paris, danced around, hiked through England, went to London, and climbed a mountain in the middle of the ocean." They were like, "All right, cool, see ya." So, so yeah, that's the short version of what we did. While we were in France, we went down just south of Paris, about an hour, hung out at a gypsy camp down there where there was a music festival going on. So we did that too. Yeah, we just got into as much trouble as we could.
That's fantastic, man. And I quite like it when somebody sort of summarizes their trip because it actually sounds more epic. It's just these big things that happen. It's like, wow.
Yeah,
Um,
and
and
so
that,
massive.
yeah, well, that's actually the point I was going for, is that there are a lot of people who want to have that kind of experience that you just described. It might be in different countries with different events, but it's that kind of epic trip where you're going and doing what you wanted to be doing and kind of ticking things off the bucket list. And then I believe it's actually because they hear stories like this, it seems so epic and so overwhelmingly big that they talk themselves out of it, which is a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, I believe, having a look at the excuses and the procrastination that people engage in to avoid having these experiences. And travel is just such a big one. There's so many people that promise themselves that, oh, I'm going to travel, I'm going to see the world, and they do not follow through on it. And I've done some traveling myself, and you'll know from your trip, it's what life's all about. Sometimes it's, even if it costs you every last dollar that you've got, you won't regret doing it. But and so for me, I always wanted to know, why is it that people don't follow through on this? How is it that they managed to convince themselves that staying in the same old routine day after day is more important than this all the time? Um, so I'm keen to have a look at that, and I'm going to be jumping around all over the place because my mind's just a mess.
Yeah.
One of the things, we talked about last time, just to kind of preempt people as to the kind of mindset you have and how you've developed yourself. We talked about our shared history and working with criminal offenders. Tell us all a little bit about your history in terms of the kind of work you've done and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I went to a really small Bible college in North Carolina several years ago, like 10 years ago, I guess, something like that. And I got a degree in counseling with a focus in working in a prison. And so I did that for a while during my college years and also after. And I worked especially with a group that right as inmates are about to get out, maybe I think it was like 5 to 6 months before they got out, they would go through this program to prepare them for re-entering society. And the state that it was done in, they saw the recidivism rate just drop dramatically because of that. And so it was really cool to be part of that program for a while. And then I did some other, just more basic prison work with counseling, and then eventually transitioned into working in a rehab, a drug rehab that was run by a group of ex-bikers, and they were just a really cool bunch. And it was on a farm, and they would just take in guys that were in trouble. Most of them were either getting out of prison or on their way to potentially going to prison. And so I still felt like I was working with the same kind of crowd, same kind of mentality, but on a less extreme situation. I wasn't behind bars. I was out on a farm with some guys, and so I really enjoyed that. I actually went to visit last week and catch up with some guys who were in the program when I was working there as a counselor, and now they're they're like running the one of the houses there, and so it's just really cool to see how well they're doing and how well they've really developed and turned their lives around. Um, it's really amazing guys, Something I was talking to with a friend of mine who went with me is realizing that these are good guys. They just have made some mistakes, and that has ended up defining them. And some of them are pretty rebellious in general, but some of them really want to do the right thing and are just stuck in a rut. So it's just always been really great to work with the people like that who want to be helped, like we talked about. So yeah, I did that for a while. Nowadays, I'm, doing this traveling stuff and working on using the We Carry Kevan brand, if you will, to help other families do similar things. Working more with the disabled community. Yeah, maybe eventually get back to rehab work, but not right now. I need a break.
Now, this is fantastic because, for all the people watching or listening now, probably one of the things that they're procrastinating, putting off, has come up. Either so you've gone and done your studying. That's something that a lot of people put off. You've engaged in work that is having a positive impact on the world and sort of putting your strengths to use. That's something a lot of people avoid doing. And you've traveled. You've traveled the world and you've seen the places you want to see. That's something that people avoid doing. So by now, I think we would have hit somebody's pain point, something where their life is less than fulfilled because they're avoiding something. And, that's one of the reasons I was so excited to talk to you today is, because of people's preconceptions and even prejudices, they'll see a guy in a wheelchair and they'll assume he's less capable of something, right? And I'm keen to hear from your experience what it's been like to be the recipient of those perceptions, to see how people doubt you or whatever it is that happens in your situation, and yet their excuses for not following through on these things are probably far less valid than yours, if anything. And so we can really see this is probably about a mindset. It's probably how you view the challenges that you have and whether or not they're completely insurmountable, whether or not, what really stood out to me, you mentioned the lady, was it multiple sclerosis, that you met during your travels. And what occurred to me is quite often our struggle is what shapes us. Our struggle is where our strength actually comes from. And often somebody with a bigger burden placed on them in terms of a struggle, they come up to meet that burden, and it gives them a strength that others who aren't burdened in a similar way do not have the opportunity to build. If someone, basically, you can see it with someone who's spoiled. Somebody has an easy life, they end up very incapable when they're older. They end up unable to overcome challenges because they haven't been tested. They haven't been put through something. So, if you don't mind getting a little bit personal, I'm keen to hear from you what it's been like for you with your physical challenges. What kind of hurdles that's put in your way over the years.
Wow, that's a big question.
As soon as I asked it, I'm like, damn, that was
That's a lot. No, but it's good. And it's something that I have to, think through. Well, I'm 30 years old, so I've been, dealing with this for a long time. It was interesting too, because the disease that I have is progressive, but its onset really early in life. And so even though I've gotten weaker and had more limitations come on me, I grew up understanding that. And like, as I, especially like middle school and high school, as I went through like growth spurts, um, my hands would start not working as well. And so I'd have to um, kind of learn how to do things differently. Or I remember around ninth grade, I had to invest in look into, excuse me, a wheelchair that would recline because my neck was getting tired faster, stuff like that. And so it's always been part of the game, if you will, to kind of figure things out and um, relearn what I can do and how I can do what I used to do, just do it differently. Um, and so it was interesting in college. I had a roommate who uh, he was legally blind, but it didn't start happening until high school. And so it was pretty fresh for him, He was still learning what uh, what those implications were. Um, had a lot more bitterness to deal with, and I grew up. My sister has the same thing that I have. We lived in a um, not lived in a community, but we had friends who had similar disabilities. So I was always around the disabled people that I was always around were people that grew up with it. And so it was a very interesting challenge to me to see someone that was recently dealing with this, like as a new thing. He played baseball and ran and rode a bike, and all of a sudden he couldn't see the ball go across the plate, and he
Mm.
couldn't bike because he couldn't do things soon enough, and stuff like that. And so walking through that with him was a profound experience to me. And after college, I had another roommate who had a similar disability to me, but it only affected his hands and feet. And I met him through, he played guitar in a band, and his disease when we were living together was progressing faster, and to a point where he was realizing he couldn't play guitar anymore. And it's been an interesting life and experience over the past few years as I've walked through this with other friends. And so yeah, my personal challenges though have been, I mentioned I was in a wheelchair around age 5, and had a spine surgery, spinal fusion, when I was 10. At the same time, I had a stomach ulcer that erupted because I just have a really messed up stomach, kind of part of not part of my disease in that it's a part of the disease, but it's because of how my body's structured. It affected my stomach, and so I had a lot of problems there. Still do have to be careful of what I eat and how I eat, or you know what state I'm in when I eat. If I'm stressed or anything, it just is awful. And in the past few years, when I was 12 or 13, I broke my arm, and because my disease is atrophy based, and I couldn't move my arm, then it atrophied faster. So I only have the use of my left hand. And recently, over the past maybe 2 or 3 years, that started becoming more difficult. So looking at, I'm primarily a writer, and so looking at, well, what's that going to look like in another 5 years? How am I going to be typing, or what's that going to look like, and how will my wheelchair, like, will I be able to use it the same way, and stuff like that. So it's just I've been really blessed with parents who um, are creative, and they're fighters, and they love life and living it to the fullest. So they raised me to get up each day and see what I could do and do it, and and even then push the envelope a bit. So yeah, since that's what I've grown up with, along with having my sister beside me, it's been a challenge, but it's been really fruitful. Yeah, I don't know if
Wow.
that answers the question.
I think that answers a lot of questions, man. And I just want to reflect on some of the key points. As you know, I run a community of people who get together to work on their confidence and to overcome whatever their ones are, their barriers and their struggles. And so I'm always looking, what are those key elements, those fundamental factors that people can apply to their lives to get through or work with, the things that provide a challenge. And you've made just so many key points that I resonate with so much. I just want to reflect on some of them here.
Sure.
Um, and I think the very first one, and throughout what you were saying, you kind of indicate this understanding, this facing your challenge and looking into it and exploring it and understanding it as much as you can. Now, in a sense, you're almost forced to. It's not a challenge you can avoid in your day-to-day life, but it represents, I think, one of the key things that a lot of people don't do well with their challenges is if it's something they can overlook, they choose to. So especially if it's more of a what you might call more of a mental barrier, there's nothing you can physically see happening with them, but they have something like this "I can't do it" type voice in their head, for example, which I think is, it's far more disabling than say not having the use of your legs. The "I
Oh,
can't do it" means no moving forward at all, right?
yeah, I would agree, definitely. Um, Sorry, are you? Do you want to make another point? I could run with that if you want, but
Well, I mean, the coming to understanding, this is what I just, the point that really stood out to me is this turning and facing the challenge and and asking yourself, what is this thing, and you, as you mentioned near the end there, how's this going to affect me in the future? What do I need to prepare for? You talked about your condition being an atrophy based condition. For a lot of people, their challenges are atrophy based, especially if they don't do anything about it. The longer you leave it, the more effect it will have, right? I mean, for me, my version of this is being the nice guy people pleaser, right? So always looking to please others. And I've worked with people around this from a very young age through to their 50s and 60s. And by the time they get 50s and 60s, it has atrophied. It is a huge, fundamental, foundational part of their life by that stage. It controls everything. They have no idea which part of their life is unaffected, if there is any part of their life unaffected. And it's created their whole career. It's created their entire relationship, their entire family. It has that effect. Um, so tell me a bit more about, you mentioned you had really supportive kind of fight for life type parents. What was it that enabled you to really just face your challenges head on and deal with them?
I think that they were a big part of that. And I grew up in a Christian home, and my faith just really plays into that too, and just finding a lot of strength and value um, in in that relationship with the Lord, and just finding a lot of peace there about my situations and kind of the storms of life sort of thing, and people talk about storms of life in the sense of, oh, this one big thing happened, or this person passed away, or I lost my job, or storms in my life are more like, well, I don't really feel like getting up today, because I'm just worn out and I haven't even gotten out of bed, or well, I made plans for this person to help me and it fell through, that sort of thing. And so just finding peace and seeing the value in life despite those things. I think through faith, I think propels me to continue to push through. Um, we were talking about um, the decisions to move forward with life and um, kind of fight against the decision to not do anything. And sometimes that is just, so do I just stay in today and play video games and, not deal with my disabilities, or do I go out and, do I walk up to downtown and, go to the coffee shop or interact with this group of people? But then on a bigger scale, like, you know, um, a few years ago, I decided, well, do I want to continue to live with my parents where I have 24-hour care, or do I want to try living on my own? Do I want to step out, get a roommate or two, and get some other guys to help out and, just go for it? And I realized that I did. And I moved out near my parents just to try it out first. But now, I mean, I live 9 hours away from them. I live up in Indiana, and I've got about a dozen guys from my church and other guys that I've met through them that come in, and it's actually all volunteer. They just come in to help me out throughout the week, and um, it takes a lot of trusting other people, and also again with my faith, like trusting that the Lord's going to take care of it all, take care of me, and if He gave me this desire to live on my own, if He gave me this desire to step out and have adventure, that He's gonna, to some extent, He's gonna make it possible. He's gonna at least open the doors for me to step through and try it out. And so that's what I've been doing, and I think um, that was the beginning of this. Um, People are like, "Oh, you're so brave for going to Europe," and blah blah blah, and I'm like, I feel like that was just a repercussion of the brave decision to live on my own. Like it's just an extension of that, and so sometimes it's those smaller decisions that add up to be bigger decisions in your life. Um, are you gonna overcome your limitations and your fears of those limitations and just try, or are you gonna stay in bed, or are you gonna stay at home and watch a movie, or you're gonna go for a walk? So um, yeah.
That's huge, man. Like from what I really, what I really take away from that, there's these two kind of core concepts. First, you're talking about that acceptance, understanding like you can wish for a different way for things to be, but things are the way they are. And as soon as you get to understanding that, you can deal with it. You can work with what you've got. You're aware of the actual resources rather than the fictional ones you wish existed, and that's huge. I think I have this debate, I guess, a lot of time with people. They think that acceptance means you'll lose motivation. If you come to go, okay, this is the way things are, that will come with why bother, you know.
Mhm.
But as you've quite clearly shown that, once you get to, okay, this is the way things are, there's a freedom in that. So, okay, so now I know what I'm dealing with. I know what to work with, what my limitations are and what resources I have. And, you start planning and moving forward. Whereas if
Yeah.
you're going, I wish things were different, you can't go anywhere with that information. You're stuck, aren't you?
Mhm.
So it sounds to me like one of the main sources of support you received were parents that allowed you, and through your faith, to get to a point like this is just the way things are. This is what you are going to be working with. Enjoy,
Yeah.
do with that what you can.
Yeah. Exactly. And I was speaking this morning to a group, and they were asking just about things that uh, were really profound for me on this trip. And one of the things was that one night. Paris is full of all these cathedrals and stuff. And one night we went for a walk and we found this old cathedral and went inside. And a few of the people that worked there uh, came up to us and they said, we have this statue of the Mother Mary in the back, and we'd like to take you back there and pray for you. We were like, all right, whatever. And then they were like, because there's been a lot of miracles and healing back there. We were like, okay. And it's like, I know that that's part of my faith, but in my experience personally with my faith is I've realized that um, it's more about my relationship with the Lord and with other people, and it's not about changing my circumstances. And it really, this is kind of a side note, but it really bothered me that instead of looking on us, because I was clearly disabled and I was on the back of this friend of mine, instead of seeing that and being encouraged by it and saying, we really love what you guys are doing and showing love for one another and caring for each other. They said, hey, we want to fix you,
Mm.
And so I think it just goes back to that acceptance and realizing, well, this is the position I'm in. Now, what can I do with it? Um, and that's the acceptance, and not saying, well, this is my position. I guess I'm stuck here, like you said, or how can I get out of this position? It's just work with what you got, and realize, kind of to run with the faith aspect, like realize the miracle in that, not the miracle in things being different. So in my case, the miracle of amazing friends being able to carry me rather than the miracle of my legs starting to work, you know? So it just seems even more amazing to me than a physical thing happening. You know? So
Wow, that's very profound, man. And that's quite it's quite an insight there. So many people think that the solution is about fixing the problem, whereas the real gift is, that problem's going to it's not really a problem, it's kind of a gift depending on your perspective, isn't it? I
mm,
mean, put it this way, I think if you were fully physically capable walking around, you wouldn't have been in a position to meet these guys, these wonderful guys who are so giving that they wanted to work with you to travel
yeah,
with you. I mean, the thing is, unless you kind of need support, you don't get to meet the people who are supportive. They're some of the greatest people on the planet.
yeah,
Um, so it's kind of, for some, I've been debating the concept of independence with people. A lot of people think of independence as doing things by yourself. I think we talked about this last time.
mm,
Understanding real independence is about having the wisdom, the strength, and the courage to make use of what's available to you. And quite often, I think people confuse that. They go, "I'll do this by myself." Well, actually, a much better way to do it would be to gain support and to humbly accept
yeah,
the support of others, which will be a gift to them. They will be more fulfilled in having that ability to work with you, and both people receive equal value from that.
yeah,
And I think that's amazing. If someone sees you, that you've probably traveled more than they have, and they go, "You need fixing," and you're like,
mm,
"Dude, you're missing the big picture here."
yeah,
While you're busy trying to fix everyone else, you
yeah,
could actually be working on your own thing. Now, for me, my belief system is really close to the Stoics, the Greek philosophy.
mm,
And there's a book called The Obstacle is the Way. And I think that absolutely defines the philosophy is like whatever your issue is the way forward. That's the thing that's going to grow you. That's where your satisfaction in life will come from, facing that challenge. And
mm,
I think the main theme that's coming through for me about you is that's what you do, is rather than try to get away or fix it, is work with it, go into it, make it
yeah,
the life, make it the reason for what you do. And that's where the real rewards come from.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I remember when I was younger, I met this lady who was in a wheelchair and she worked for some nonprofit or government agency that helped other people with disabilities. And she was just a really strong character and really amazing woman. And I remember her telling my sister and I, she said, you both are really bright and really strong spirited. And when you get older and go out into a career, find something that you can, a career that you can work in to help other people with disabilities. And I remember thinking, like, I don't want to do that. I want to like live a normal person life. I want to do my own thing and prove, that was the big thing. I want to prove that I'm not disabled, kind of thing. People would say, oh, you should write a book about your experience with disabilities. I'm like, no, I don't want to. I want to be a normal person. And just as time went on and I continued to gain assistance from my friends and became more and more, through some specific relationships, I became more comfortable with being disabled. And I think also part of it was a maturity thing. I went from, I have to prove that I am normal, quote unquote, to realizing like, no, I'm disabled and I'm in a position to do exceptional things because of the people around me that I've been blessed with and the personality I've been blessed with. And so I need to use that, and just embrace it. And now, like, everything I do is to help other people with disabilities. I recently, I was hanging out with my sister and I stopped and I was like, you remember that? I guess I'm doing that now, I didn't even mean to, now I am. But I think it comes with embracing who you are and running with that, really, because there's nothing you can be more comfortable with than who you actually are once you come to grips with it, you know.
When I work with people on helping them design their own business or create a career, I always ask them, what's the problem in the world that you want to solve? And I dig into that question, what is the pain that you want to help with? And always, once you dig deep enough, it's their own pain. That's the one they want to help other people with. It's their own struggle. And there's this kind of beautiful, I don't know, this beautiful relationship with your own problem that once you face it and deal with it, you become equipped to help others with it in a way that no one else can. No one who doesn't understand dealing with it can help them the way you can. And I think about like the way I resonate. For you it was a physical condition. For me, it was a mental condition around pleasing other people, seeking approval. It affected my entire life, and I ran away from it for decades. And then when I finally faced it, I now have a career which is all about helping people with the same issue. And it's my work. It's the most fulfilling thing I could do, is to help somebody who's struggling with something that took me, say, 7 years to deal with, to help them deal with it in 2 months or 3 months. That's the gift. I'm like, I've done the work. I can help you do this more effectively. I help you get to acceptance quicker. And that's what I love about this, is what I think you really demonstrate is often people perceive themselves as having a weakness without realizing they are looking at their strength. They are looking at the thing that if they face it in a different way, it will define their life, but not in the way it has been. It won't define their life as a victim. It will define their life as a kind of a hero, So I think for a lot of people, is they just don't know how to make that switch, how to be, this is a disability, to actually, this is kind of my purpose in life. This is the thing that has created my strength, And one of the things that stood out to me with what you were saying before is this approach where you kind of say, how can I? How can I deal with this? How can I get past this? How can I use this? How can I do that? Rather than just like, should I? There's a very, very subtle thing there, isn't there?
Yeah.
How is it that you came to develop that that kind of approach to your challenges, where it's always just how am I going to deal with this rather than like can I deal with this?
I mean, going back to my parents, I think it started with them. And, everything from like my dad's an airplane mechanic, so he can fix anything, and kind of a MacGyver kind of character, and just very creative. And my mom is a very administrative individual and has just lived a life full of working with people, and they both love to help individuals. But as you well know, working with people, everyone is unique in some ways. You can't just like have a mass product cookie cutter answer. You have to look at the situation and be like, all right, well, how are we gonna deal with this? And so I just think it's amazing that of all the couples in the world, they ended up with two kids with disabilities, and they were just so perfect for it, because so yeah, I grew up with my dad, like, my wheelchair would break down. He'd say, well, all right, how are we going to fix this? Or I wanted to play soccer when I was in fourth grade or third grade. And they said, okay, how are we going to do this? He welded together a plate for the front of my chair to hit the ball, rather than, are you sure this is a good idea? Or can you do this? It was, all right, how do we do this? And so yeah, it's really it goes back to my parents. But then having friends, especially I have a lot of friends that are really great and really helpful. But I feel like I have, I had two friends in high school and maybe three or four since then who are very innovative. And just that they look at a situation and figure out how we can do it. And everyone else is helpful, but these ones are the ones that come up with the ideas. And so the fact that I've been surrounded by those people has been a huge help in fostering it in myself as well. But I'm also, my sister has always said that I'm kind of the go-getter, and I come up with an idea, and before I think through it, I just go for it. So then once you're in the middle of it, you gotta figure it out, So some of the guys actually who went to Europe with me a few years ago, we were like, we should explore the sewers underneath our college. And so we made up this weird backpack frame, wrapped me up in it, and we got down to the sewers, and then we had to figure out how we were going to really, I mean, then you're in the middle of it. And it's like, all right, well, we can't get over this pipe. Well, let's take Kevan off and pass him over. Or, this part we got to squat down, and how are we going to do this part? I think that's the fun thing, is psych yourself out to get into the middle, and then you figure your way, either figure your way out or figure your way further in from there. Either way, you're going to have an adventure. So, yeah.
If we could somehow plant that understanding in the minds of everybody, the world would be a completely different place.
Right.
It's, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head. And I think that's what I was digging for with that how can I type question. It's something I resonate with deeply. I throw myself into it, and then I have to get through it. I don't allow this pre-planning thing to get in the way of actually being involved in the issue itself, whatever it is, especially with business.
Yeah.
And that's what you've done, isn't it? It's kind of like, rather than, okay, what is steps 1 through 10 going to look at? I'll just start doing step 1 and trust myself to somehow get through this.
Yeah.
And this is one of the key things I always try to help people understand is if they're alive right now, it means they got through everything so far. It's a very obvious point, it seems. And yet they don't see that. They see some challenge coming up, like, oh, I can't deal with this. How am I, I just don't think I can do this. And so you dealt with everything so far. You've got a pretty good track record,
Right.
I'm sure you'll get through this next thing, or you'll die trying, which means, suffering's over anyway. So it's kind of like, and I think what we're sort of, there's some key points coming up. First, you've got to face your challenge. You've got to accept it as a friend and go, how am I going to work with this thing for the rest of my life? How am I going to work either around it or through it or use it as a strength, this kind of how can I approach. And then we get to really, I think, the key thing that your story demonstrates more powerfully almost than anything else is I guess working with support. And this is a huge, for me, one of my real biggest disabilities throughout my life is this concept of independence. I have to do everything by myself. And there's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that one really, I think, speaks to what we're talking about today. So tell me, because this is where I think people get stuck. Tell me about how you overcame your barriers to working with support.
Well, the short answer is I'm an extrovert, so I love having people around. But no, I could go further into it. In fact, I was talking with some guys last night about this hindrance that we have as men. I think it's built into our frame to and our mindset, that we find a lot of self-worth in productivity. And so in the same sense, we have this independence mindset of, well, if I can be productive, if I can do this thing on my own, that is something of greatness. And so that's something that we have to fight through. We have to push through because it's not right. Just like you said, we can go further and we can do more with the right people alongside us. Sometimes you can have too many chefs in the kitchen, but too many cooks in the kitchen. But when you have the right group of people who are working together, building each other up and being productive, then it can be a really beautiful thing. And when we're talking about independence, I also realize, when I moved out of my parents' house, when I moved halfway across the country, the word that I used was so I can live independently. But really, it's I'm more dependent on more people than ever before, and it's a good thing, because I do live technically on my own. I have that freedom, and I live in a place where I can go down the sidewalk by myself to the store, the shop, or whatever. But I can only do that because I have a dozen guys helping out. I have, I can only go downtown because I know everybody downtown. So if I need anything, they're there. Or at my church, and I know everyone in the office, and that sort of thing. I can. My life is only possible because I'm surrounded by people, and I just love being inclusive. I I've been at the house here for about 55 minutes, an hour on my own, and the only reason I'm still doing okay is because I'm talking to you. I hate being by myself, so my roommate should be here any minute actually, which is good. But yeah, so I love inclusion. I love being with people, and I know that's not always the case with everyone. I have other friends with disabilities who, if they could just be on their own all the time, just because they're introverts, they just like to be by themselves, and they would. But so I know that it is a struggle for some. And on our trip, as much as I love being around people, I was surrounded by 7 to 10 people 24/7, and there were a couple times when I was like, guys, can you just sit me in the other room for a few minutes, to get my thoughts together, kind of, have a minute to myself. So I know that that's a thing, but, and I know like with my sister, uh, she, she requires a lot of help as well, but with being a girl, she has a lot more, intimate needs than I do. And I'm just kind of a guy. I'm like, I mean, I had a conversation with a friend once about, well, if I was in public and I didn't know anybody around, could I ask someone to take me to the bathroom? I was like, well, yeah, if there was a guy around, and he seemed not sketchy, then sure, I'd ask him, whereas I know someone like my sister would just, she'd black out before she asked him, so I know part of it is my personality. But I think, it's just a good combo of personality and, like we said, accepting the reality that I do need this help, and so might as well just run with it and embrace it. Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is being, um, what's the word? Being okay with what I need and how I need it. So,
Now, I think this is a key point because this is where I think people's biases and judgments will come in. They'll look at you and think, well, he obviously needs help. And yet they don't think the same of themselves because they're not in a wheelchair or whatever.
mm,
And it's such a crazy thought. All of us needed teachers to learn things at school. All of us needed someone to hire us to get a job. We've always needed each other. It's the very nature of our species. We're not tigers roaming around alone, completely self-functioning. We are a communal species where our strength comes from working together. And
yeah,
you can deny this. You can live a life where you absolutely prevent others helping you, and all that does is limit you. There's no freedom in that. There's just
I
a
was gonna
prison
say,
of the most
you'll
you
just
can do is what you're capable of, right?
yeah, you'll just be miserable.
It's so ludicrous. Like I said, somebody looks at you and they think it's obvious and they think they're different somehow, and yet whatever their barrier is, that is their prison unless they get support, unless they work with others who can provide the additional missing piece. And I'm as guilty of this as anyone. One of the reasons it took me, 2 years to get this Brojo thing really running properly is because for a large part of it, I avoided assistance. I was trying to do it all on my own. And as soon as I brought other people in to help me and let them help, I was like, oh, this is such a better deal. They're getting something out of it. They get to be part of this. They feel like they're giving. And this whole thing just works so much better because they make up for my weaknesses. For example, like I can't design anything. I'm so like I can be an artist in terms of music and dance, but drawing and design, I'm just terrible. Like everything I come up with just sucks. But if I was to continue going, no, I'm going to do all my own designs, everything I did would look like crap. I bring someone else in, and now my problem with design isn't a problem anymore because they can do it. And they get so much reward out of doing it as well. We make sure that everyone kind of gets a piece of the rewards and it just works out. And so for someone to look at your situation and think that you're different to them somehow is completely irrational. It's just, it might be physically obvious to the eye, but it's absolutely no more of a disability than any of their particular shortcomings, weaknesses, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
And I think that's the main message, is that humility, we all actually do need help. There's this kind of thing we talk about in Brojo. You leave a baby alone. You can give it food and everything it needs, a newborn baby. But if you do not give it any sort of affection or support from a human, it will die. We are born needing each other. And why would we sacrifice that beautiful gift out of this pride of doing it by yourself? It just does not make sense. But there's kind of one of the last, I guess, I mean, a key thing is how to generate that support. But you've also identified sometimes you've got people automatically in your life, like your parents, and you're lucky to have that kind of support. Others you had to go find. You had to go find a place where they're likely to be. You went to your church and you found people who were already had that mindset of, yeah, I want to get involved and help people. People who are looking to volunteer, things like that. those kind of people who are going to be good support, they are kind of obvious.
Yeah.
They're not that hard to find, really. But you have to go looking for them. You have to put that effort in. You have to put away your pride and go, I want help. Who's a good person to help me? And then go out and ask for that help. And it's all balance. You go into the prisons, you help guys. You go into the farms, you help guys. You give, they give, everyone gives, and it's all good. you know, it just
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah. Well, and that's yeah, I'm glad you said that because I think a major key to that, to going and finding help, especially in like a physical regard. I know it's not always physical, but even if it's like needing counsel, if you just need company, something. Um, Part of that, I mean, you need to be, not to change yourself, but you need to be someone that people want to help, to some extent. And that doesn't mean hiding your needs. It means encouraging them, and um, being open about your needs, but what's the word? You know, I don't know. Does that make sense? Like you need to encourage people. You need to be be ready to give back as well. In that sense. Um, if you just even, I mean, whatever community that you're in, no matter how giving they are, if you just come in wanting, and needing, and you're not willing to, I think you use the word like if you're not willing to humble yourself and come in and say, this is where I am, um, you know, can we work together? Um, and can we work together because I love what you're doing? If you don't encourage and you don't humble yourself, then why should people help you? And I know that there are extreme situations where people are at the end of their rope, and so I don't want to exclude that. I mean, there have been moments when I have friends who we have an understanding that sometimes I'll call and say, hey, you guys want to come over and watch a movie, or you want to go get something to eat, and they understand that I'm just doing that because I want to hang out with them. But then if I call and say, hey, I really need help, I need you to get me up tomorrow. Are you able to do that? Then that's different. Or I'll say, hey, do you want to go get something to eat because I'm stuck at my house? Like I need this. So they know that there's a difference between uh, wanting to hang out with them because they're a friend and wanting to hang out with them because I actually need them. And making sure that, like you said, there's a balance of that, And so yeah, again, I know not everyone is the same, and so I hope it's not a blanket statement, but you need to be prepared to humble yourself and bring something, something to the table, even if it's just humility and encouragement. Because we got to build each other up, you know. We gotta. That's the only way that this thing is going to work. It's called humanity.
Well, that really raises a key point because we've been talking about essentially helping the people who are too independent for their own good. But there's also
Mhm.
those who leech off others. They take and take and take. They call that getting support. But they don't realize the reciprocal nature of support is when you're going to receive help from someone, you give. There are some ways where it's very practical, like someone will pay me for coaching. That's an example of a reciprocal relationship. Other
Right.
times it's like you give them recognition and appreciation for the support they give you, and that is the reciprocal nature of it. Sometimes it's like, okay, you do this for me and I'll do that for you. There's It's not so much about how it's done, it's coming in with the mentality that this is an equal giving relationship, not I want to come and take some shit for free, you know?
Yeah.
And
Well, and sorry, and that's a good point too with with your coaching. Sometimes the way people in that situation can give back is simply by taking your advice and using it, and doing it. And it's like, man, I feel like I'm being paid back just by watching you grow, you know, and like that's, so the way you give back is, it can vary. But yeah, being someone that people are gonna want to help is a big thing about it.
Yeah, that's a really key point. We've all had this someone who comes to you for advice and then doesn't take it, and then they come back again and again, and they keep living their life the same old way. It feels like you're losing something. It feels like something's being taken from you, your time, your energy, something. And you realize it's just like, dude, if you want my help, use it. That's the best way you can pay me back. It's
Yeah.
like a parent raises their child. The child never really pays them for that service, you know, but a child who goes out and tries, like I have no doubt your parents feel with you, the fact that you took their support and their encouragement and you went out and did shit, they like, yes, we're good parents. You've given them the reward of having an impact on you, and that I think is the most basic, probably the most basic premise for this. If you want someone to give you support, go to them with the intention of putting that support to use. And that will be the best way you can really give back. They get to have an impact on the world. They get to feel significant. You've given them the gift of significance. And I mean, is there really any better gift you can give someone to say you matter? You are an important thing in this world.
Yeah.
Um, so that's fantastic, man. There's one last point. I mean, I knew we were going to go over time because it's just such an epic discussion. But there's one last point I really wanted to hone in on because I think this is the number one barrier for people moving through the big challenge that they face. I think you used the word bitterness. Is what happens, and we've all got this. We have our challenge, our so called disability, and sometimes we just go, oh, this is unfair. This, I don't want this. Why does other people not have this? And this bitterness about the cards you've been dealt. What are your
Yeah.
tips for dealing with that bitterness?
When you said this is not fair, all I could think of was my one of my favorite books to read. I've lost count of how many times I've read it, and it's a movie as well as The Princess Bride.
Oh
When
yeah,
they say life's not fair. Anyone who says otherwise is selling something, and it's the great lie that we embrace for some reason, is that life should be fair, or that we have a right, and I think that's a big thing, is realizing at the end of the day, the because we live in a culture, I think most of the world honestly lives in a culture of what I deserve and what rights I have. We have this laundry list of rights that we fight for. Where at the end of the day, I mean, we have the right to be alive and breathing, you know, and the rest of it is just, it's just a gift, and I guess to give an example, a very practical example, in reference to the trip, uh, in reference to the trip that we made, in preparation for it, we were designing the backpack for me to be carried in, and we had a frame and we were trying to make all the adjustments, and I'm really comfortable in my wheelchair. And at first, we were trying to set it up, the backpack, in a way that I would be just as comfortable in the backpack as in my wheelchair. And I talked with a few guys who do a lot of hiking and backpacking, and they said, the thing about hiking is that there are practical comforts, in that, like, you don't want to, wear on your skin, or you don't want to get injured, basically. But then there's comfort for comfort's sake. And when you're hiking or backpacking, that goes out the door, like if you have shoes that are really good, um, that allow you to walk comfortably for 4 hours, well, then stop after 4 hours. take a break, take them off, put them back on, and keep going. And the same was with the backpack. They were like, we can get it to a certain comfort level, but this isn't a luxury thing. Like you're doing this to travel and to experience the world, not to be comfortable necessarily all the time. And so we got it. I mean, again, to a practical comfort level, but there were times when like my hip would start to get sore or my knee would cramp up, and so we just stop and take a break, and so kind of running with that idea that it wasn't, I didn't have a right to be like perfectly comfortable. I didn't even need to be perfectly comfortable. What I needed personally was to see the English countryside. I needed to travel, and I needed to be on the streets of Paris. I didn't need to, you know, uh, have my rear end feeling perfect the whole time, like it was sitting on a cloud. So I don't know if that helps convey the idea that we need to. It goes back to the humility aspect that we just need to realize that um, I'm alive and I have friends, and um, what more can anyone ask for? And everything else is just details, you know. And the things that you're unhappy with, I mean, work on them, but don't let it ruin your life. Don't let it ruin your day. Um, just look around you, and usually, if there's a pile of things you're unhappy with, there's usually other things that you can be thankful for too. Um, and I personally have just chosen, again, partially because of my faith, I've chosen to look at those positive things and let those be my reinforcement, um, rather than dwelling on my issues. Um, I don't know. I just feel like if I dwelled on my issues, my discomforts, my limitations, I'd be screwed. I just wouldn't know what to do with myself. Um, Instead, I woke up this morning and was like, wow, it's a sunny day. This is good. It's going to be a nice day, and the ramp outside my door is not going to be slick, from rain. So, that's a good thing. All right, let's go. My friend came to get me up that I haven't seen in 7 weeks because of my travels, and um, I was thankful to see him, get a hug from him when he came in. Um, I didn't really worry about the fact that we were going to be at least 10, 15 minutes late for my speaking engagement, because what mattered more to me than running late was being with a friend, And so just embracing the positive things, and yeah, I mean, I think that's important. Um, and realizing that the negative things are just part of life, that they're always going to be there to some extent. Yeah. I kind of sorry. Last thing is the church that I spoke at this morning. Afterwards I was talking with a lady who, she and her husband about 15 years ago adopted two little boys from Russia, and in the court in Russia, when they were asked, when they were being asked the questions about adoption, these two little boys were disabled, and the court actually asked them, um, why would you want to ruin your life by having these two boys with disabilities? And the mom responded just beautifully. I'm getting chills now thinking of it. As she said, um, their disability is a part of who they are, but it's not who they are. And they have so much more value than just that. And so I love them, and I want to take them home and take care of them, you know. And so I think that we can all realize that our disabilities and our limitations are just part of who we are. They're not our entirety. They're not the entire world. And the world's a big place. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's epic, man. That is epic.
Cool.
Um, I mean, the overall thing that comes through for me, there's two things. One is acceptance, the other is responsibility. You look at your life and you just accept the way things are. You look for the gifts that come beyond being alive and just breathing, and you appreciate them. Uh, and then you go, okay, if I want other stuff, it's me that has to do something about it. I have to work with others. I have to do whatever it takes. I have to put aside all shame and humility and just be willing to do whatever it takes. I like the idea of there's a certain level of comfort you need for survival. And then there's comfort for just comfort's sake that you can sacrifice to go for the things that are really important.
Yeah.
Comfort like avoiding the issue you want to face, comfort like feeling good physically. These are things you can sacrifice for something that's so much more worthwhile, something that's so much bigger. And when you've had enough of that discomfort, just take a rest. And then
Yeah.
when you're ready, you start again. And that's, I mean, it's such a process you could take to anything, whether it's traveling, starting a business, getting into a relationship. Take as much discomfort as you can handle for the important thing. And then when you've had enough, take a break until you're ready again. I mean,
Yeah.
that is
And,
the absolute formula for life.
yeah. And finding the balance of, if you have discomfort, but the thing you're going for is worth it, push through. I mean, some things are just worth that. I actually, uh, 2 days before we climbed Skellig Michael in Ireland, I fell and messed up my foot. I sprained it really bad. And the whole hike up there, every left step that the guys made, because my foot is basically strapped to their hip. So every left step that they made, I just felt pulsing through my whole leg. And it was painful. And part of me was like, why am I doing this? Why am I up here? But also, I'm looking around me. I'm experiencing this place, this island, the the love that my friends have for me. Like all these amazing experiences culminating into this painful step. You know, every pulse of that pain was worth it.
Mm.
Um, and it almost made it even more valuable. Because there was a risk, there was a pain. So yeah, this even when you reach the brink of your comfort level, saying, okay, evaluate what I want to do, evaluate what's in front of me. Um, is it worth pushing further? And if it is, go for it. So,
That's beautiful, man. Yeah, the idea, and I really like that idea that the pain will actually enhance the reward. When you have to earn something, it tastes better, doesn't it? When you've had to go through something for the achievement more than, especially when it was more than you thought you had to go through. You really, it's like if I'm working with, say, a guy on his social skills or his confidence or whatever. If he has to go through like a lot of anxiety and pain to end up going on a date, it doesn't matter how the date goes. He's like, I can't believe I made it here because of what he had to go through. He appreciates it so much more. Whereas like a really naturally socially confident guy could go on 10 dates without any fulfillment. He hasn't had to earn that. There's no pain threshold he had to cross. Um, Look, there's been so much gold today, man. I feel like I could talk to you for a week, and I'm probably going to have to talk to you again.
yeah,
Um, there's
anytime.
so much more I have to go through. But I mean, to wrap things up, I'd really like for everyone to hear a bit more about We Carry Kevan and what they can do to either get involved, support it, promote it, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, you know, now that we're back from the trip, we're kind of in this period of time where we're figuring out what it means now. What We Carry Heaven is. Our goal this week, actually, I'm going to arrange some meetings to work towards turning that name into a nonprofit, because our desire now is to help other people. I think our motto right now is help as many people as possible, do as much as possible. And so we've had a few families with kids that are disabled reaching out to us asking about the backpacks that we use. We're coming alongside them because everyone's unique. We're helping them to design something that works for them. We want to help adults with disabilities make trips that they otherwise wouldn't be able to. Whether it's helping them figure out their medical needs or helping them raise funds to do it, or both, whatever the case may be. So that's the direction we're going. And the guys that I went on the trip with, we are definitely going to, have more adventures ourselves, just because that's who we are. But our goal right now is to help other people and kind of give back, like we've been talking about. I'm writing a book about the trip that we took, and we're making a documentary film, both of which will be out in the spring of 2017. So you can keep an eye out for that. But if people just Google We Carry Kevan, or go to wecarrykevin.com, they can get information. We're on Facebook. Facebook and Instagram are honestly the best places to connect with us. Kevan is spelled Kevan. We Carry Kevan. And so, yeah, if people want to follow us on there, and as things arise, whether it's announcements or needs, especially as we work with other families, there may be times where they need something that we're like, all right, real quick, we got to do a fundraiser for this amount of money to help this family, or maybe we'll just have a story to tell about a family, So if you sign up, you're not going to be asked for money every 5 minutes, but but most of it is stories and encouragement. People have been really encouraged by the Facebook and Instagram feed, different stories that we've been able to tell about our community and people that we've been able to interact with, and our story of brotherly love and self-sacrifice. It's been an encouragement to me, and seems like others have been as well. So yeah, if people want to just follow along what's going on, and when people are called to action, they'll be there to know.
That's fantastic.
That's fantastic, man.
I'll be sure to include a link. Getting some feedback here.
Oh,
I'll be sure to include in the bottom of the video as well. Allow people to come check out the site. And I'll promote it a bit myself. I'll promote this interview around a bit so people can hear your story and really share the good word. Look, man, I just want to take the time to be here with us, so openly and humbly sharing your story. It's been really phenomenal. And yeah, man, I look forward to speaking with you again.
Yeah, same here. Thanks so much, man. It's been great.
All right, man. For us for today. Thank you for listening, and hopefully reach out and get in support of Kevan.com. That's Kevan with an A. WeCarryKevan.com. Get involved. I'm sure you'll feel great. Kevan, thank you once again. To everyone else. I'll catch you. Cheers.